Jones speaking on Technology Day, about Luddite. The world has gone mad. Cats and dogs living together. Thank you again, Ron. It's my pleasure to be here. In all honesty, bottom line up front, Intertech's been my best technology partner here in the state. Just in the last 6 years since I've been here, the technology that we use for professional sports stadium has multiplied incrementally. I've got lots of great products with shoddy customer service. I've got great customer service with shoddy products, but Intertech has been a great example of, I got both. I got great products and I've got great customer service. Thank you, Brian Medeiros. I'm just not saying that because you asked me to. Every time I talk to Brian when something's going on, the response that I usually get is steel is already down at the stadium and they're already working on it. It's almost like he can read my mind. I really do appreciate that. Plus, I also enjoy the fact that David DeLuca, who isn't here, has the coolest mullet that I've ever seen. Every Tuesday on our afternoon brief, I asked David to turn his camera on so I could see. I was kind of wondering, doing some head scratching on what I should talk about today. Jackie said you may want to hear a couple war stories. I can certainly tell you a few of those. And then let's talk about the state of technology in the stadium and kind of where I think we should go, or this industry can go in the next couple of years. So a couple war stories first. The best thing about 35 years working for the federal government was obviously the travel. I got to do a lot of international stuff with both the Marine Corps and Federal Bureau of Investigation. I love the Mark Twain quote: "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and that broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's life." Most of the travel I've done, either in the Marine Corps or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, has not been to the greatest places. I kind of get stuck with the not-so-savory places, but I learned a lot from the things I've been able to see. And I always reflect when I come back to kind of how good we have it here. We've got some problems in the United States, some divisions, but when you see some of the things that I've seen in some terrible, terrible places around the world, every time you come back, you appreciate it more and more. I just got back from a hiking trip in Iceland. I hiked across Iceland, and they've got a word there called heimsker. It's an adjective. It means idiotic, stupid, dumb, or dense, but literally it means someone who has never left home, someone who has lived under a rock. And then sort of the counter word to that is heimsborgari, and it means for someone that's well-traveled, a man of the world, knowledgeable, informed, experienced. I'm not claiming that, but I have got to see some things, and I just want to tell you about a few of them. My career has taken me all over the world for years at a time in some cases. You know, if I had to sum it all up, all that travel in one single lesson learned, it would be that I really come to appreciate everything that's been granted to me as a citizen of the United States. Growing up in Washington, PA, which probably most people don't know where that is. We live in a relatively stable place, an affluent country that's afforded me some freedoms and relative domestic tranquility that a lot of people around the world do not get to enjoy. Again, we have problems here, divisive times, not going to talk politics, but when you compare what we see here with what most citizens see around the world, you should consider yourself lucky. Just a couple war stories to illustrate that. So, in December of 2007, I was working for the Joint Special Operations Command as the FBI Senior Liaison. I worked for General Stan McChrystal, who was a great American. We were in Kenya, and I was with a sub-element from JSOC. They had a big detachment in Kenya. The FBI actually has a lot of overseas offices, almost 70 of them. We call them legal attaches, but they're basically FBI liaisons to host country law enforcement. And we had a big one in Nairobi, Kenya. JSOC had a big office in Nairobi, Kenya, and one of my jobs working for General McChrystal was to sort of hook everybody up so that we could exchange information and intelligence between law enforcement in Kenya, and what the military was doing in the Horn of Africa. And as luck would have it, one of the JSOC exchange officers was a British Special Air Service Lieutenant Colonel who had grown up in Kenya. So for a very rare time, we were able to combine business with a little pleasure. It was almost Christmas time. This guy's name was Rory, and he had family in Nairobi. So we visited our offices. I talked to the FBI folks in the Nairobi office, And then we went and we spent some time with Rory's family. And they were relatively wealthy. His grandfather had made a lot of money in telecommunications in the Horn of Africa. And they had this really cool piece of property. It was on an old coffee plantation, an old terraced coffee plantation. And the main house was up on the top part of the terrace. And then after that was the pool and then the tennis courts, and then the gardens were below it. It was really, really nice. And I've been in Balad, Iraq for the last 90 days, eating in a dusty, fly-blown mess tent. So it was really nice to go spend Christmas Day with this family in Nairobi. So we walk into the house, table set for about 45 people, kids underfoot, huge Christmas tree, uniformed waiters serving us smoked salmon and French champagne, a little bit different than what we experienced in Iraq. And then after a couple glasses of champagne, after about 90 days of not drinking, I find myself talking to the grandfather, the patriarch of the family. And he's explaining how stable Nairobi is. 7% growth over the last year, huge telecommunications business, robust tourism through the Great Rift Valley, steady declining foreign debt, et cetera, et cetera. He's a really smart guy. And in all honesty, after a couple more glasses, I was probably ready to invest in the Horn of Africa. That was Christmas Day, 2007. We flew back to Iraq the next day, December 26th. And on December 27th, there was a presidential election that resulted in ethnic violence in the streets of Nairobi, and 1,000 people were killed with machetes. And I just remember thinking, you don't see that here. So we had a little thing at the Capitol a couple of years ago, but we did not have 1,000 people killed. We did not have machine guns set up. We did not have artillery pieces set up. A couple of days after that, 50 people in a little town called Kiambala were locked in the church and burned alive. So I just remember coming back to the States after that thinking, wow, a stable country like Nairobi or like Kenya can experience something like that at the snap of the fingers. It was distressing. Later on that year, in May 2008, I was in Samarra, Iraq, again with the Joint Special Operations Command. Samarra is a Shia Muslim enclave in a largely Sunni country. It's got a famous mosque there with a big golden dome on it. And in 2006, Al-Qaeda blew up the mosque and the dome and basically started the civil war. It started a wave of sectarian violence across the country, and it took the country about 2.5 years to recover from that. So it was just starting to kind of come back to some sense of normalcy in May of 2008 when we were there. We were able to actually kind of walk down the street, and the people were so proud that they were able to rebuild just a little bit. And all these street vendors would come out with these carts, and they had so little. A couple of cans of soda, pop, back in Pittsburgh, right? A couple of oranges and maybe some apples, some flatbread with salt and parsley on it, and they were giving us this food, and it looked like the pictures you see of Gaza right now on TV. The town was just rubble, but they were giving us this little bit that they had. They were so proud. I remember seeing a young teenage girl, about 9 or 10 years old maybe, with this yellow dress on, kind of poking her head around the corner, wondering what these people were doing in the street. And I just remember thinking, where do they sleep? What do they eat? How will they ever survive this? How will this country ever rebuild? And it really kind of hit me a couple months later. I went back for an R&R trip to the States. I lived in upstate New York at the time. Around the 4th of July, my wife sent me down to the local BJ's wholesale warehouse to pick up some meat, for the barbecue. And I just remember standing in the meat section, 30-pound racks of ribs, hamburgers stacked up this tall, big, huge boxes of steaks and hot dogs and everything you can imagine. You see it every day here at the Giant Eagle or wherever you shop. And I just remember standing there wide-eyed thinking, you could probably feed the entire town of Samarra for a month with just the food that's in this grocery store right now. It was kind of mind-blowing. You don't see those things in some of the places that I've been overseas, and it just made me appreciate everything that we have here. I came back for a short period and went to Cleveland. Don't tell anybody, but then after that I was assigned as our legal attaché in Kabul, Afghanistan. So again, the FBI has numerous offices all over the world, to include war zones, and with my JSOC experience, they're willing to go back again and do that. So I was there for 1.5 years, and in Kabul, we had about 100 agents, and we worked frequently with a number of Afghans, native Afghans, who we called FSNs, Foreign Service Nationals. They were highly vetted, we polygraphed them, made sure they weren't bad guys, weren't spies, and we paid them. They worked for us. And we oftentimes would sit around the bonfire pit at the embassy in Kabul in Masood Circle and just talk about life. Religion, family, hopes and dreams. They were always very curious about us, and we were always curious about them. And I learned to kind of understand just the different ethnic hatred of each other. You've got Pashtuns to the south, Hazaras in central Afghanistan, Uzbeks up north, Tajiks up north. Most of my guys were Tajiks. They loved the Americans. And then one time they took me up to the Panjshir Valley, which is up very in the north part of Afghanistan, where it was kind of the Tajik stronghold, so to speak. And they put this big spread on for us. They were so proud of the landscape up there. It's beautiful, mountains and rivers. If they ever stop shooting at each other, I'm going to invest in some ecotourism over there because it's just such a beautiful place. The Buddhas out to the west. We had this big spread, and they put out, again, all this food. They didn't have much, but they gave us everything that they have. And then they talked about just the religious and ethnic hatred inside the country. They were trying to come back together in 2009, 2010. And the Uzbeks didn't trust the Hazaras, and everybody hated the Pashtu, and the Tajiks were ready to join up with the United States again. It's just so dissimilar to what you see here. And then, we would actually talk about religion. My father was raised Protestant and converted to Catholicism to marry my mom. My in-laws, Sue Ellen, my mother-in-law, is Catholic, and my father-in-law, Hugh, is Methodist, and they go to separate churches on Sunday. And sometimes they'll go to one together and sometimes the other together. You just don't see that in Afghanistan. They told me that if I did that there, you'd probably be killed. And I just remember thinking how much that was just different. So every time I've traveled and every time I've come back, I've just always appreciated what I've come back to. It's not quite, put your heels together 3 times, there's no place like home. And I know we have problems in the country, but they pale in comparison to what you see overseas. So for those of you who have the ability to travel sometimes and get out of here and just see other places, please do so. It really gives you a different perspective on life. And it kind of brings into focus, just the smallness of my problems here. Drunk Steeler fans on game day, Browns fans beating up Steeler fans, Ravens fans trashing my planters outside because we took all the purple flowers out. They didn't like that. And then, I talk religion, I talk politics, might as well talk sex. Phallic objects being thrown onto my field. I actually had to brief my team security on the response plan for that. Because we don't want the cameras to pick that up. I have no doubt that some technology company will invent something soon that sees one of those flying through the air onto the field. I think it came from the NBA. I'm not sure exactly what it means. We've had one so far, but you'll see him again. So enough of the war stories. Let's talk about sort of where we are now here at Acrisure Stadium. Again, I've been here 6 years, and the technology has just multiplied incrementally. When I first got here, the highest piece of tech equipment we had was a Garrett walk-through metal detector. Now I've got Garrett's as backups, I've got Evolves, I've got Cheas. I just bought 2 brand new Evolve Expedite X-ray machines because our security posture has been elevated given the NFL shootings in New York. I've got a drone detection system up on top of the scoreboard. I've got biometric facial, I'm not supposed to say recognition, facial authentication systems for both access control in my front office spaces and now for credentialing across the NFL. I've got 25 or 26 Wicked facial authentication readers, and all our credentialing now is facial authentication. So we've got to the point where it's beyond the capability of someone like me to manage all that new technology. A lot of stadiums are actually going to a position inside the stadium called the Director of New Technology. So much stuff is coming out that it's kind of difficult to get your arms around. I think this might have been sort of a COVID thing, but I get a call a week now of some new technology that somebody wants to pilot here or wants to sell us, and I really have to be cautious about chasing bright, shiny things, right? So when COVID hit, one of the things we piloted were these huge trailers that you walked through, and it took your temperature, and it scanned you, and it screened you, and it sprayed mist in the air. And we're starting to see that on the technology side. Lots of stuff that will be cool to have, but I don't necessarily need. I'm not terribly worried about a firearm in my stadium. I know that I might not catch a knife, but I'm going to catch a firearm coming in. So I don't really need a gunshot detection system here in this stadium. Maybe that changes down the road, but right now I don't feel like that's something that I need. That's kind of a bright, shiny thing. I think now we've got a good mix of old tech and new tech, but I'm getting to the point where I'm putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids. I got an old stadium, so I'd like to kind of work in the future towards what can I sort of replace in one big piece to make my technology better. The one thing I would tell you as technologists, remember that there's always manpower behind that technology, and remember the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, because I've got 21-year-old kids that are on their phones 75% of the time. They're managing the systems that you're developing and implementing. And I know many of them are easy to use, but some of them aren't really that easy to use. The Evolve system is a lot more complicated than the Chayas. It's a lot more accurate, and it's more beneficial to me, but sometimes it exceeds the level of intelligence that I get when I hire a workforce I'm paying $12 an hour for, and maybe get thrown into the mix on game day, like at the last minute. And then we're constantly focusing on ways to reduce manpower, to automate things, and I constantly see systems that appear initially to look like they'll save me manpower, but don't really. I have to manage that system somehow. I have to fix it. Have to have service calls on it, and then many of the systems that we employ give data that I really don't have time to read. Another position that you're seeing out in the stadiums are sort of a data engineer who can take all the stuff that's being spit out from my Evolves, my Chayas, my throughput, and kind of crunch all those numbers to tell me what it means. But that's where we are now. I am always receptive to looking at new technology. So please, if you have something that you think would fit my stadium, let's do a pilot. For the Evolve Expedite X-ray machines, we piloted them in January, and when the league came out and said, you got to buy these things, we were ready to do that. So that works out for me. So what's the future look like for the stadium? I need to start combining systems. So picture this. You're coming to the stadium. NFL fans are very much creatures of habit. When we had COVID, we wanted to split the stadium into quarters so we could kind of have people come in through different sectors. So if one sector was sick, we knew we wouldn't have to look at this sector. And the fans rebelled. My in-laws have had tickets for 40 years. They come down on the T, they get off at gate C, they come in through a certain entrance, they go to that Permani Brothers, they get their Iron City beer at that beer stand, and they take this path to their seats. So they're very much creatures of habit. But whatever I can do to refine that entrance procedure would really help me out. Again, picture this. You get off at the T station, gate C, without taking anything out of your pocket. You walk through gate C, and you've got a camera. The Evolves are already camera equipped. You've got a combined camera and electronic ticketing system. So it recognizes your face. It says, Bob Jones has a ticket, and it screens me at the same time. And I don't have to take anything out of my pocket. So I don't break stride. Go my path, say I have a club ticket, I'm in the West Club. We have a big problem in the clubs where people, well-heeled patrons want to sneak other people into the club. I walk up to a facial recognition reader, it reads me again, Bob Jones belongs in this club, and at the same time, the bartender behind the bar has my face pop up on his screen, and it tells him my name. It tells him that I'm 21 because I've already pre-registered my driver's license. And it tells him that I can pay because my credit card's in there too. And it says Bob Jones likes to start off with Iron City beer before the game, and then at halftime he switches over to gin and tonics. So I'm able to walk up to the bar, and this bartender, who doesn't know me from Adam, would say, Mr. Jones, welcome to Ackley Shore Stadium. Would you like your normal Iron City beer, or you want to go straight to the gin and tonics because we're going to get our butts kicked this game? That technology is a couple years away, I think. I know that all the magnetometer people are working on that combined screening and electronic ticketing. And I think our patrons are at the point now where they get it. When we went to electronic ticketing, we had a rebellion 3 years ago or 4 years ago, because people like their paper tickets, but we've conditioned the fans that this is fast, this is a way to get you in the stadium, and there's a way to do that. We can also go to that technology with our concessionaire, where you walk up and again, it's registered your face, you know your driver's license, they know you're over 21, and you pay by credit card. You walk up to the system, you phone in your order, and you pick it up, and you pay for it all in one fell swoop. We've got a problem with long lines here, and that would help us out. So we're kind of getting towards that technology as well. And then the other thing I would mention for sort of down the road in the future, I think we're actually piloting something today with some new cameras. I'm kind of reactive when it comes to the security systems and what they tell me what's happening on game day. I can skew my bull cameras to section 234 when the fight breaks out, but I need something that tells me a fight is about to break out in section 234 because you're seeing a strange AI-generated congregation of people, or that somebody has gone horizontal on a concourse, maybe indicating a slip and fall, maybe indicating a fight, so I can be alerted in my command center that something's possibly going on. My boss is constantly asking me, how come Allied Universal Guards down in my command post didn't see that thing happening in section 118? Well, I've got 180 screens down there, 2 guys sitting behind the console. Unless they happen to be looking at it, they're never going to see it. It's a great reactive tool, and I can make copies to give to police, but whatever you can make that kind of puts me on cue and on key as the situation is developing would really help me out. I need to get to that point so I can get there kind of before the bad stuff starts happening. I'll stop there and take any questions you might have, but again, Ron, thanks for